Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Ethical Clues. I hope you all are doing great today. Today in this video, I am going to continue the introduction to ethical hacking module. I hope you liked my previous video where I covered some basic security terminologies, some attack vectors, attack motives, etc. I have given the link of that video in the description below. Do check that out if you have not done already. This is going to be the second video in introduction to ethical hacking module. And in this video, I will be covering about what is information warfare, what is Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, what are threat identifications, what are adversary behavior identification, some indicators of compromise, what is ethical hacking, who is hacker, what are different hacking phases, some risk, what are the different risk matrices, and risk management. So let's start. First one is what is information warfare. So as you can see from the name itself, like information warfare means the information is basically used for a warfare means. Here we are using the information and communication technologies for competitive advantages over an opponent, whether it can be of organization or it can be government or anyone. Some examples are like the corporations. So the corporations spy on each other to use each other's technology secrets and patent. So if any corporations or any organization know in advance that any target company or any opponent company is looking for some patents, then they can, if they have this information, then they can use that information for their own advantage. Similarly, governments also spy on other governments by using hackers as a proxies to gain information about their defense system or any other system, so that the government can basically use it for their leverage. Some common weapons which are used as an information warfare are like the viruses, trojans, malwares, trapdoors, and etc. And some common info war strategies are: first one is an offensive strategy. In the offensive strategy, we basically try to attack an opponent, so that when we are going to attack an opponent itself, then it will give us an advantage, a kick start that. So we classify this as a category of offensive strategy. Second one is a defensive strategy. In this, as a from name itself, it is clear. Like we are basically defending ourselves and taking actions or preventive actions against the attacks which can happen. So this was the information warfare. So second one is Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain. So this is like a cyber kill chain in an efficient way to describe, and it describes how we can attack an organization or any government or anything whenever it comes in terms of cyber security. So this is a cyber kill chain basically being used by army also whenever they are planning to attack their target or their opponent. So the same, it is basically used in the terms of cyber, then it is called cyber kill chain, and it is also being developed by Lockheed Martin. Also, in other sense, it is also a framework for basically identification and prevention of the cyber intrusions activity. So this cyber kill chain basically can be used for the offensive methodology also, and as well as for the defensive methodology also. Okay. So coming to different steps of sequence of steps which we have under the cyber kill chain steps. The first one is a reconnaissance. So in this reconnaissance, we want to gather as much information as possible about our target. So as we know, more we know about our enemy, more easier it is to basically attack of the enemy. So that's why we basically try to capture as much information as possible before actually attacking them. And to have this, we try to gather the IP information of particular organization or the IP information of the employees who are working in that particular organization, or if you talk in terms of government, then the nation employees and something. And second one can be the email addresses of the employees or that particular citizens. And third one can be the social media channels of that particular employees, like Facebook, Instagram, and so on. We can try to contact those employees or those citizens by using their social media. And in terms of organization, we can try to have the know about the contract which this organization is having, so that if we know what the contract the organization is having, then we can even use it for the better contracts. So if we already know that our target company is having this much contract, then we can quote some better contract on the on top of that. which will help us in. Also, it can be used as a conversation starter with the employee, because if we know something about a contract and if we talk about this with the employees who are already working in our organization, that employee might think that this person is an insider person only, and might be possible that they will reveal some more information about a contract or some other information also. So these are the examples of reconnaissance where we were trying to gather information about our target system. Second one is a weaponization. So once we already know about the information about a target, we can analyze the data which we collected and to identify the some patterns or some vulnerabilities, and then we can basically exploit the vulnerabilities to gain access into their system or some networks. Okay, so in this case, attackers basically do a customized malware based attacks, and they design some customized malware and which can be used on their target. Okay, so some example of this like creating phishing emails. So depending on the what organization or what type of company we are attacking, we can create a customized phishing emails on the basis of that. Also, we can create a customized phishing websites on the terms of the habit of the whatever website the employees are visiting and all. And also, we can create a malware loaded removable device also, so that if an employee injected a particular removable device, the malware will be loaded into that system. Third one is a delivery. So once we already done the reconnaissance step, we done the weaponization step, so we already are ready with that particular malware based attack and something. So we already have that. Now we have to basically deliver that virus, that malware into our actual system, into our actual target system. Okay. So how we are delivered that, basically we can deliver that using any phishing email. So and also we can deliver it by the removable devices, as I quote an example, like if in device we have a virus already, and if that employee will inject a particular removable device like USB in this case, then virus will get loaded into that system. Also we can do a social media post, and in social media post we can basically load it with a malware, so that whenever anyone, any particular person or intended person will click on that post or will like or comment or something, so that particular malware will be loaded into their system. Also we can do some water hole attacks. So water hole attacks is like a minimized version of the phishing attacks. So that's a very customized and very low level of phishing attack that is intended only for the specific audience. And these were the examples like how we can basically attack our enemy, our system. But in case if we want to defend our system, so what kind of defensive action basically we can take against this type of attack is like a detect. Okay, so we can detect if there is an attacker poking around into a system. So we can basically do a scanning and all to identify any type of unusual activity happening onto a system, onto our networks and all. So that will basically help us to identify whether something is going on with our system. Next one in this cyber kill chain is the exploitation. So once we have already delivered our virus, our malware, trojan into our target system, we can exploit their system by installing various other tools, like installing tools like running scripts, and also we can modify the security certificates of that particular systems, networks, etc. Some example of it like arbitrary code execution, some zero-day attacks, which are we can do when we know already about the vulnerabilities within the system, and we can exploit those. So the defensive strategy which we can have against this type of exploitation is basically to deny. Okay, so we can basically prevent information disclosure of any type, and also we can discourage any unauthorized access, so that if any person is not authorized, we will not let them access any of our information. So that will prevent us the exploitation of a system or the networks. Next one in this cyber kill chain is installation. Okay, so in installation, what attacker try to do is the attacker try to create a backdoor or some remote access trojan is installed by the malware. Okay, and that basically provide access to our system or our network to a remote intruder. How some basic clever thing which an attacker can do, which can fool any of the system or the security person who is scanning the system and all, is one is the timestamp. In timestamp, attacker changes the timestamp of the file to the earlier time when the OS was installed, so that it will look like that this file was basically an original file and was installed in relation with the operating system, so that it will give us a less suspicion on this file. Okay. And the defense strategy which we can have against this type of attack is like a disrupt. We can stop or we can change our outbound traffic which was going to that particular attacker, so that it will stop going to that particular attacker. Next one in the cyber kill chain is a command and control. So once we have done with that particular installation, where we created a backdoors and provided access to the intruders, attacker try to gain the control over the target system and networks. So attacker try to get the overall access over the whole system, whole network. Okay, so that it will allow attacker to do the remote manipulation and exploitation of the victim. And what defensive action we can take against this type of thing is like degrade and deceive. Here we do the counter attack command. Okay, against counter attack command and control or interfere with the command and control. So if that attacker try to gain the complete control of our system, then we can interfere with that particular system, and also we can launch counter attack against the intruder, so that that particular attacker will try to defend their system in the meantime, and we will get some time to defend our system as well. The next one is this is the last one is actions on objectives. So once attacker finally extract the data from the system and make a overall control over the system, so their objective involves like the gathering, encryption, and extracting confidential information from the target environment. So that's like a hack value which we talked in the first video, because the our end goal is basically to have some information gathering, some like confidential information that can help us in getting the money in exchange, or that can help us taking our confidential information. And what defensive action we can have against this is like contain. So we can do a network segmentation of our system, so that if in case an attacker attacks one of our system present in the network, then other systems can be still be protected, because those net system will might be connected to some other networks. So we can do network segmentation, and we can just avoid and we can contain an attack. So these were the cyber kill chain basically being used while doing any type of attack. Okay. So the next topic is threat identifications. So whenever we're doing try to identify a threat, there are some techniques or some tactics and some procedures we try to follow. So it's helpful to analyze some threats and also to help us to profile the threat actors that used to strengthen the security of an organization. So starting with the first one, that is tactics. So tactics is like a guidelines that describe how attacker is performing their attack from beginning to end. Okay, so if we know their method, so if we know like what's their tactics, their techniques, so we can identify and we can predict and detect any threat which might evolve in the future. So that come under a tactic. Second one is your technique. So technique is defining your technical methods that attacker might use to achieve their goal. And it can help to identify vulnerabilities and also to implement some measures, countermeasures in advance. Okay. And the last one in this is procedure. So procedure is like a detailed sequence of actions taken by the attacker. It also helps us to identify what an attacker is actually looking for. Okay. So tactics was just a way, just a guideline, and a tactics was the actual technical methods, and procedure was the step-by-step. Next one is a adversary behavior identification. Okay. So it is like involving the identification of common ways or techniques followed by an attacker to launch some or kind of penetration attacks. Some kind of common behaviors which we can identify that can help us identify that any attack is happening. Like first of all, an internal reconnaissance. Like if internal person is doing some kind of reconnaissance to go gather some information for internally, then we can identify that that can be adversary behavior. Use of PowerShell. If any attacker is trying to use a PowerShell, when we should be suspicious that something unusual is going into our system or into our network. Also some unspecified proxy activities, or some use of command line interface, or some use of HTTP user agent, some command and control server is trying to connect to a system and trying to take over up to system, use of DNS tunneling, or some data staging also. We're gathering and mixing the maximum amount of information which we have. These are some kind of common behavior which we can identify, which we can keep an eye on, so that it will help us to identify any unusual activities going on to our system, into our network, that can help us in preventing our systems. Now, we will talk about the indicators of compromise. Earlier, we talked about some adversary behavior. Now, we talk about the indicators of compromise. So, this will give us some clues, artifacts, or pieces of forensic data found on network or some operating system of an organization that indicates that intrusion already happened, or the malicious activities on an organization infrastructure already happened. Okay, indicators of compromise categories which we have, like first one is the email indicators. So on the basis of email, sender email addresses, their attachment, we can identify that these can be the indicators that these are the compromise factor. Second was your network indicators like unusual DNS request or URLs or IP addresses trying to connect to a system or to a network. Then we should keep an eye on that particular one. Third one is a host indicators. Some file names or HTTP keys, file hashes are getting changed or getting included into a system. Then we might know that we should be keep an eye on that this something is going into a system. Something is someone is trying to do something with that. And the next one is behavioral indicators. Example, someone is trying to do a remote code command execution or executive PowerShell script or something. Then we should be aware of that. This is again the indicator of compromise, which can indicate that some compromise can happen to a system. Okay. Now come to next one. That what is ethical hacking? Okay. So ethical hacking involves an authorized attempt to gain unauthorized access to a computer system, application or data. So when we are saying authorized attempt, then I mean is, so ethical hacker are the one who has a license to basically attack into the system. So they have a permission from the organization or from the government for which the attacker is working. And then what ethical hacker try to do is to gain unauthorized access to a computer system. This ethical hacking is also known as white hat hacking, and it is performed by security specialists who have come to help basically companies identify vulnerabilities. Now comes who is hacker. So hacker is an individual who basically uses their computer and technical skills to gain access to system and networks. So a hacker is anyone, any individual, any organization or someone who have the computer skills and as well as the technical skills, and then they are trying to access the system. Now hacker also have a different type of varieties, or we can say different hacker classes. They're starting with the first one. There is black hat hacker. So they attack for the illegal or malicious purposes. So black hat hacker, they just do for the commonly for the money purposes. Second one is a white hat hacker. These hackers are also called as ethical hacker, and they are the authorized one to do the attack on any particular system. Third one is your gray hat hackers. So these gray hat hackers, as it is common from the name, like these are between the black and white hat hackers. They might break the law, but they do not do hacking for the malicious purposes. Next one is the suicide hacker. So suicide hackers are the ones who are not careful about the consequences of their actions. They just want to do hacking, however and whatever it took. Next one is the script kiddies. So script kiddies are like the very inexperienced hacker. They do not have their technical skills. They do not create any malware or true viruses or the other. They basically use tools and methodologies built by other hackers. Next one is your hacktivist and cyber terrorist. So hacktivists and cyber terrorists are the one motivated by political or religious beliefs. Hacktivists or cyber terrorists both basically have a some political or religious belief. The only difference between cyber terrorists and hacktivists is that cyber terrorists want to send a message, but hacktivists want to basically harm their targets. Next one is a nation state or state sponsored. In this, basically government try to recruit some ethical hackers so that they can perform an ethical hacking on their intended machines or some for specific other their target system. Now comes what is hacking phases. So hacking also different phases. Like the first one is reconnaissance phases, where this is also known as footprinting or information gathering, where we are trying to gather information of as much information as possible about our intended system. And there are two type of reconnaissance which happen. First one is your active reconnaissance, where attacker basically engages with the target system to gain information about that particular system or network. And the passive reconnaissance is where attacker works in a stealth mode, so that the attacker will cannot be identified if someone tries to trace back. Second one comes as scanning. So once we already have information which we gather from the reconnaissance step, we can try to map the routes and firewalls which we gather from that first step. And also for this, we can use different tools like as port scanner, vulnerability scanner, etc. to do the scanning. Third one is your gaining access. So once we done with the scanning, so we know all the mapping between the routes, firewalls, we can use this for our advantage to gain access to that particular system or the network. So this is an attack stage step where we are going to attack the actual. Next one is your find an open point in the target OS application. The next one is the maintaining access. Okay, so the maintaining access is once we have already attacked our target, then we are trying to maintain the access to that particular system so that our attack can be persistent one. We try to keep admin and root privileges so hacker can continue using the system. And the last one is the clearing tracks. So in this case, we hacker try to do anything and everything to hide their activities so that no one can trace back to them. The goal is to maintain access but without getting noticed. So here we either clear all the text as fast as possible, or if possible then don't even generate any text so that no one will trace back. Next one comes the risk. So risk is like a degree of expectation that an adversary event may cause damage to a system, and risk mitigation is basically trying to do some actions to reduce an organization's exposure to potential risk and reduce their likelihood that those risks will happen again. So we try to do mitigation of that so that those risks will not happen again in the future. So we try to minimize and try to reduce that. Next comes the likelihood. So likelihood is how probable that it event can occur in the future. So that is the likelihood of a particular event. Now comes the impact. So impact is like an estimate of the harm that could be caused by a risk, or in this case event or something. Next come your risk matrix. So risk matrix is basically used to scale the risk by considering three factors. First one is the probability, second one is your likelihood, and third one is your consequences or impact of the risk. Okay. So if I consider this particular risk matrix example, so here it is a likelihood on the Y scale, and on the X scale I'm taking the consequences. So if we talk about like take an example of this here. So if we have a negligible consequence, but our likelihood is almost certain, then we can keep our risk as a moderate level. Okay. But in case our likelihood is very rare, but consequences are catastrophic, then again we can keep our risk into a moderate level. But if in case, let's suppose our likelihood is almost certain and our consequences are also catastrophic, then we can put this risk into an extreme category. So once we have a risk matrix identified, then we can move on to this risk management. So what does risk management means is, risk management is the process of reducing and maintaining risk at an acceptable level. So we can never have a zero risk into a system or into a network. So whenever we're doing trying to manage that, we just reduce this so that we can have a minimum amount of risk at an acceptable level. And some risk management phases which we have, the risk identification, like the data gathering activities, threat identification which we can have. Second one is the risk assessment, by scaling the risk by using risk metrics. Risk treatment, like prioritizing fix and documenting them. Risk tracking the risk until closure. Risk reviewing, ensures right actions were taken at the time of doing all those identification, assessment, treatment, tracking activities. So yeah, that's all I have in the today's video. Thank you so much everyone for watching the video. I hope you learned something new today about how security works, different kind of hacking, kill chain, hacking phases, and so on. So if you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Share this video with your friends and colleagues and other cybersecurity enthusiasts who are interested in knowing about the ethical hacking and cybersecurity. Also, do not forget to subscribe to my channel, The Ethical Course. I'll see you soon in my next video and we'll continue on this introduction to ethical hacking module. Till then, take care, goodbye, keep learning, and keep watching the ethical course.